as usual, we have to just get ourselves warmed up. Okay, we'll try to make it as limber, right? Exactly. Before the course. Okay. There we go. Basically, we have two Gemaras, and both these Gemaras don't add up to what some people think the Rambam is saying, which is that Meitav is the least preferable payment. According to the Rambam, the mazik has to give kesef or shava kesef, and if he doesn't have those two, only then does he give his meitav. That's what the Rambam says according to those people. And we're involved in that shita. And that seems to be very surprising because the way we were learning, Rav Huna says meitav is better than subin, and Rav Papa said all three things are equal. No one said that meitav is worse. So that's the big dilemma. Where did the Rambam get this? So, and it's not only the Rambam, the Ramah also says the same thing. So even if you don't like what even if you say the Rambam says differently, but we have the Ramah as another Rishon, and the Nemuch Yosef quotes both of them. So that's where we're holding to figure out how these two great Rishonim are learning the Gemaras. Now we have two Gemaras that we're focusing on. Of course, there's going to be other Gemaras that will be involved, but the two basic Gemaras that we're dealing with is when Abaye asks his kasha between Meitav and Subin, and Rav Papa answers that all Meitav, all Metaltalon is Meitav, and Kark is not, and that's why the Torah said Meitav. And the other Gemara is Rav Huna's interaction with his student Rav Nachman. Rav Huna starts with O Kesef of Meitav. Rav Nachman says to him, what do you do with Subin? And he answers Vespid Leslie. So those are the two Gemaras that are in front of us, which we are going to analyze and produce the Rambam and the Ramah, says the Nachlas David. Well, how are we going to do that? So the first thing that Nachlas David does is, as we learned in Darkei Gemara, Medayek al Lashon. We have these two texts, and he makes a very simple observation. The observation is that Rav Huna seems to be saying too much to answer the question, what do you do with Meitav and Subin? He has to have this introduction. Doesn't seem as necessary. And Abaye doesn't have that introduction of Kesef and Meitav. So the beginning statement of Rav Huna is missing from Abaye, right? Abaye only brings the question of Meitav and Subin, and he doesn't bring up the question of Kesef and Meitav. So that's our problem. Abaye doesn't bring up this first starting statement that Rav Huna has. And the other question he asks is, really, what does Rav Huna need the first statement for? If his only problem is Abaye's problem, which is Meitav and Subin, then he just should have answered that when you don't have, if that's your problem, when you don't have Meitav, then you give Subin. That would have been an easy answer. What does he need this extra premise of Kesef is equal to Meitav? So those are very powerful inferences that the Nachlas David makes, observations. And based on those observations, he's going to take us into a very, very deep journey all the way back to pre-Torah, Svar Chitzona, and how the Torah is going to handle the Svar Chitzona and come out with its solutions. As we said, it's very, very, very beautiful, very deep, and I haven't seen anyone that's done such a fine work as this. Most people were just handling the Gemaras and trying to get the result of the Rambam. They were happy with that. But to go all the way back to nice, voracious, fantastic Chiddush of the Nachlas David. Okay.
Way,
yes.
The text that we still want to look at after the Nachlas David, You seem to say that Nachlas David is a kind of peak. It doesn't get better than that, even afterwards. Although that might.
Well, the reason why I say it's a peak because he goes outside all the way in, and the other people are going to be handling more on the Gemara level and the case level. We'll see. There's a whole piece. I really didn't do the Chazon Ish is very very brief. He's definitely just handling in case, and he's making differences in case only on the top level, not going all the way back down. And the Rav Issa Meltzer has a very long piece that I haven't really done, but I mean I haven't done in depth. But basically, he's just going to say that the Rambam's talking about a special case. Okay, just give me one
Right.
second to get that. My wife is not. All right. So the Issa Meltzer is going to explain the Rambam in the Rambam's terms. It's a very long piece. I haven't done it yet, really in depth. So we're going to have to just wait on that. But as far as this type of depth, I think this is unique. But again, there's a lot of Torah being written out there, and I can't vouch because I haven't read everything. But this is definitely dramatic. First of all, it's very based in the text, and it's, as I said, it goes all the way back to Ma'aseh Bereshis and shows us the not only the results but all those premises that led to the results. Okay, but the first thing, and it's also classical. It's also in the sense that it's
Right.
medayek on lashon and using the rules of darshaning, and also clearly identifying which premises are the machlokeses and why. So, and also it's very, very well based. The whole key here is a few lines in the Beis Yosef's commentary on the Tur. The Beis Yosef is the one also agrees that the Rambam is unusual. He doesn't mention the wrong. He says the Tur is unusual. She goes against his father, and he explains why, because of this comparison to Malva and Lova. And he leaves it at that. But all the details he doesn't tell us. Okay, and people jump on him and say, wait a minute, how could the Tur go against his father, the Rush? And the Rush says it's clearly different, Malva and Lova. So that's an essential piece that the Nachlas David is building on and explaining. He's not coming into this by himself. But whereas you and I or the simple person can't appreciate the depth of what the Beis Yosef did, the Nachlas David can and can put it all together for us, which is very dramatic. Also, the Nemuki Yosef explains the Rambam. It looks, we'll have to go over it again, in the Reb Papa, and not in this combination of Rav Huna and Reb Papa that the other people are doing. So he's very, very powerfully based in the Rishonim. I mean, he's not just doing this all by himself. He's really explaining to us what they said, and they spoke very, 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 very briefly. Okay, but be that as it may, this starting point is very, very important because he's going to say there's a big chiddush in Rav Huna. And the big chiddush of Rav Huna is to make an equality between Kesef and Meitav. And why is that a chiddush? Because Abaya and Rav Papa disagree. So, and then the only question is, well, if they disagree, how come Abaya, for instance, who brought up the question, would say differently, and why? Okay, why? And what's even worse is if you're going to say he disagrees by saying that Kesef is better than Karka, so then he should have brought up that question too. Because once I have a hierarchy, then the Torah doesn't have to write twice the lower one and the higher one. Just say the lower one, and I'll know the higher one, right? You lower the bar, the speed limit is down to 40, and I know if you do 50, 60, 70. So the same problem that exists, that Abaya has between Meitav and Subin, which is that hierarchy, should exist also with Kesef and Meitav. So why didn't he say it? So all that, which is unstated, he's going to now spell out in a very clear way, and then Bezat Hashem, he's going to explain the other Rishonim too, and what their starting point was, and we're going to see, as the Ramchal says in the beginning, we're going to see the argument in its entirety and the pluses and minuses on each side and what exactly they were arguing about, both textually, and then what we're going to add, Bezat Hashem, is this little even deeper level, which is what they're all pointing to, which is what is the svaras here to say that kesef is greater or equal to meitav. That's the idea of we're talking about. Why did the Torah say meitav? Was it because of we started talking about it? Was it a question of the utility of the object, or is it the question of the convertibility of the object? And how does that? How will that then be the result of this of the technical learning? So we have a lot to do. Okay, so the first move is, why did Abaya not talk about the kesef meitav relationship? And he wants to eliminate the possibility that he agrees with Rav Huna that you can use either one. Okay, like some other people were doing, and he brings the reason why you can't say that is that very critical Gemara of Talui Masa Benachri. That was the case of Malva and Lova, and there the Malva can demand kesef even though the Lova is offering him land. So we see that the Malva has the Yad El Elyon over there. So if we bring that into our Gemara, so we're going to have to say that you can't say it's an equality. It has to be that kesef is a better choice. Now, how is that going to shine into our case? We'll see in 1 minute. Okay, so that was the first. The first one is the first one is that because of Malva and Lova, we have to say that there's a hierarchy. If there's a hierarchy, then why didn't Abai bring up the question, just like he did with the hierarchy of Meitav and Subin? The second problem is going to be Rav Huna. It seems that Rav Huna didn't have to start where he started. He brought up the Meitav Kesef premise, when really, if the only problem on the floor is the Meitav Subin premise, he could have just answered that you give Subin B'diavad when you don't have the Meitav, but if you have Meitav and Subin, you give the Meitav. He could have answered that without this premise, so he spoke too much. So those are the two critical questions. Abaya not speaking and Rav Huna speaking too much, so to speak. So to answer that, the first question, he says, why did Abaya not have a problem with the Kesef Meitav hierarchy? That's the first question. Okay? He didn't bring it up. And he should have brought it up because of this Gemara in Malva. And he's arguing with Rav Huna, who says that there is no hierarchy. So why didn't he bring it up? So says the Nachlas David, because there was really no problem with the Torah writing both Meitav and Kesef. Why? Because it's true that Kesef is greater than Karka, and therefore the Torah, if the Torah just wrote Karka, the loan, we would know that you could give. Oops, I'm going to do my other chart because this didn't come out well. Here's my other chart. If the Torah just would have written Karka, we would have known you could give Kesef or Karka, which would be lowering the bar. Okay. The fact that it says Kesef again is to be a miyut. We said repetition turns into a miyut, and the repetition of Kesef when it didn't have to be said is to tell you that when you have Kesef and Karka, you must give Kesef. So that's how that's why Abaya didn't see any contradiction between Kesef and Karka, because he held that in the end of the day, the din of Nezikin is really the same din as in Malva. Okay, meaning that if that the Nizak can demand, either the Nizak can demand or the Mazik must give Kesef if he has Kesef and Karka. Okay, so that was the Kiddush here. The Torah had to tell us that the Zikin is the same thing as Malva. In Malva, we said we have a Svara Ba'alma that Kesef is greater than Karka, and that if you have both, you have to give Kesef and you can't give Karka. But we wouldn't necessarily have said that in the Zikin. So by repeating the Kesef when it didn't have to, the Torah was telling us that the same din applies. That's the bottom line here. Okay, so really there's no problem. There's no real problem why the Torah had to write both Kesef and Karka. Because if it only wrote Karka, I would have said it's your free choice to give either one. If it only wrote Kesef, I would have said Kesef and not Karka, right? So by saying Kesef and Karka, it's to tell you that if you have both, you must give Kesef first. So there's really no problem. I mean, that's why I didn't bring it up. Okay. What was Abaya's problem? The only problem that Abaya had was with Meitav and Subin. Why? Because the Torah put Yashiv, the Ribu of Yashiv, in the pasuk of Kesef and not in the pasuk of Karka. By putting Yashiv in the Ribu of Kesef, it must be sharing Kesev's priority over Karka and saying, just like Kesef, just like when we said if you have Kesef and Karka, you must give Kesef, so too, when you have Yashiv, Metaltalin, and Karka, you must give Metaltalin. So that's what the association of Yashiv with Kesef did to us. It made the Yashiv greater than the Karka also. Gave it the same quality that if you have Yashiv and Karka, you must give Yashiv. If the Torah, and what's the big problem with that? The problem is Svara Chitzona. This big red arrow. Svara Chitzona. Because in Svara, it doesn't make sense that the Mazik should give Metaltalin before Kesef. We're trying to help the Nizak here. The Nizak, if you ask the Nizak, what would you prefer? Would you prefer Karka or Subin? The Nizak would say, well, sure, I would prefer Karka. I don't want that Subin. So in Svara, the Torah is trying to help the Nizak, is giving him the wrong thing. By the association of Yashiv with Kesef, it's saying he has to give Metaltalin and not Karka, which is against Svara. That's Abaya's terrible problem, because Meitav should be Meitavin, meaning Rechina lo, meaning Metaltalin not. The worst thing is Metaltalin. And yet its association with Kesef makes it better than Karka. So if you have Metaltalin, Karka, you have to give Metaltalin. So that's what stumped Abaya. The Svara went against the learning in the Torah. Okay. Now, what would have been my alternative? What would be the alternative? If the Torah would have lined up with Svara, if it would have put Yashiv in the pasuk of Karka. If Yashiv was in the pasuk of Karka, that would have worked great, because I would have said Metaltalin is less than Karka. And if it only said Metaltalin, I would have said Karka or Metaltalin. By repeating Karka, it's saying Karka Dafe, not Metaltalin. That would have worked out great if Yashiv was in that pasuk, right? If Yashiv was associated with Karka. Unfortunately, it wasn't. And therefore, its association with Kesef makes it greater than Karka. It has the same quality that if you have Subin and Karka, you have to give Subin first. Okay? Very good. That's what bothered Abaya. He was stumped. The learning of the Torah seems to go against what simple Svara would tell you. We added one little point here. Although Yashiv is greater than Karka because it shares that quality with Kesef, we added the point that we don't know for sure what Yashiv's relationship to Kesef is. Okay? And that's how the Nachlas David going forward is going to make the machlokas between the Rambam and the Ramah. Because the Rambam will say, well, this is like every other Ribui, and therefore Yashiv is equal to Kesef. You can give Kesef or Subin, either one. Of course, you can't give Meitav. And if you don't have both of them, then you give Metaltalin. That's what the Rambam will hold in Reb Papa, and the Ramah will say no. The association of Yashiv with Kesef just made it greater than Karka, but it itself is a step lower. And we discussed last week, and we'll get into it a little more, how he could have done that, saying that was only Rav Huna's position. Rav Huna was forced to make the Ribui an inequality because of the problem of Meitav, and he didn't have that problem. We have to do that, and we spoke about that last week. Okay, so that's basically what the problem of Abaya was. The problem of Abaya is when you start with Malva and say it's equal to Nezikin, then Kesser is going to be greater than Karka, and then when you run it through the Pesukim, you're going to end up that the association with Yashiv will have the same property of Kesef, which means that it too has to be given before Karka, which goes against the Svara. That was a bias problem. How did Rev Huna answer it? Excuse me, how did Rev Papa answer? Rev Papa said, Per Shuha. We explained Per Shuha is not changing the circumstances like Rabbi wanted to do, in court, out of court. It explained why actually there is a very good svara that metaltalin is more preferable to the nizak than meitav. What was the svara? The svara is that the nizak wants money to replace his damaged object. And therefore for him, the ability to get his money is much more important to him than the inherent usefulness of the object. So you, Abaya, were looking at the usefulness of the object and saying, look, if a Nizak had a choice between Karka and Metaltal and Subin, he would pick Karka. And Rapapa said, that's only if you look at the intrinsic the intrinsic quality of the item. But if you look at it in terms of its exchangeability into cash, so you'll say, wait a minute, the Mazik really wants to replace his item, and he wants cash. He doesn't want Subin, he doesn't even want Meitav Karka. What he wants is cash, and wanting cash will make it that the Nizak will get his cash better than it will with the land, because even the best land, you have a very limited amount of buyers, and you may be stuck, we said, with a white elephant that's worth all the money, but no one wants to buy the land, and you want the money. So in that aspect, the Nizak is going to gain, because he'll be able to get his money. If not here, he'll go down the street to the next town and he'll collect. Okay, so that's how Rapapa answered. Now, this morning we had a little class with my other student, and we just added another little point here, that we had a lot of points, but one of the main points that I just wanted to bring out here was that whenever you have a kasha, it's going to force an uncomfortable position. You never get a kasha that's going to produce what we call a galat teretz. In other words, there has to be a gain here. So kasha means there's a difficulty, so if there's a difficulty, something's got to give, you see. And you always have to spot what exactly is the give point here. I mean, okay, so we said here there when Reb Papa switched the perspective here to wanting money, he also switched he also added to the Nizak a bit of tircha. Okay, because a buyer will say, look, if you look at the here and the now, the Nizak would rather, if he had a choice between Meitav and Subin, would pick Meitav. Okay, so now it's true that Reb Papa switched the factor here, and the factor is getting your money, but he also added a little bit of tircha on the side for the Nizak now, right? The Nizak will have to now go to the next town maybe and get his money back. Okay, so that puts a little bit. Yeah, go ahead.
Does that really matter? I mean, the whole point of saying that he wants to do that is that it's saying it's his preference to go. I mean, of course it's a tircha, but that's I don't know how to say it. It's not.
Well, it's not going to be a breaking point, but the tircha is good for him. Well, it's still a tircha. I mean, he'd rather just get his money right on the spot.
What I mean is that Rav Papa is saying that the tircha, it's like when a person says, well, it's no bother. In other words, the Nizak would willingly do that tircha in order to get the exchange amount. So it's not really a tircha. It's not. You see what I'm saying? It's not really It's not like he's losing something, because otherwise we could say, fine, if you're losing something, so why did you have that interpretation? Just take Meitav, and why? But Reb Papa seems to be saying, no, it's his own preference. We're not imposing this tircha upon him.
Well, it's true, but I mean, Meitav, if Meitav was a hot item, right, so he could get the stuff on the spot. I mean, let's talk about it a little. I mean, in the place that he's in, right? Are people more willing to buy the Meitav or the Subin?
Yeah, the Meitav.
So they'd be more willing to buy the Meitav. So in a certain way, the Meitav has an advantage here. That's what Rav Papa says. There'll be kofets. They'll jump on Meitav.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in a certain way, even in the present place, you're getting you're going to get your money, right?
Yeah.
Without any tirchav running around. However, the only downside is the amount of buyers. Even though they normally people will jump at it, but the amount of people you have jumping there is less. Subin, there's not too many people jumping around for Subin, we have to admit, right? No one gets excited about Subin. However, you have a larger pool of buyers in the marketplace. But to get to that larger pool of buyers, you do have to take a little trip, Have to open up a stall and schlep it over there, sell it, I mean, now maybe that goes into a price. It doesn't go into a price. It's a whole other problem. I mean, how we're going to evaluate it, that's a very interesting problem. But it does require a little bit of tircha on the side of the nizak. Like you said, okay, he's going to do it but when is he going to do it? Again, but let's talk. Again.
I mean, all I'm saying is that it's not. Why does it concern us? I mean, so the question that you're saying is that the question is, how is Rav Papa's argument compromising something? In order for him to make this argument, he has to compromise something in the pure argument itself. So we're not really talking about whether the person has a tircha or not. We're talking about whether Rav Papa has a tircha.
Yes, well, Rav Papa's interpretation. That's right. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. So in his interpretation, he's saying, look, people would prefer Subin, even Subin, to Meitav. Now, but what you're saying is that in itself, in order to make the claim of such a preference, you actually have to limit the case.
Well, or extend the case. Yeah, well, extend the case, really. I don't know, called limit or not.
Yeah, geographically.
Geographically extending it.
Yeah, but in terms of actual application to persons, it limits it because we would like to have a position which says, you know what, Subin is always better than Metaltalin. That would be ideal. But your Svara is saying, no, it's not always. It depends who we're talking about here. Are we talking about local market or expanded market? So he is forced to make his position within an expanded market scenario. Because he couldn't, that in that sense, it's dochek. He can't really make that case for a local market. He can't say, yeah, my next door neighbor would probably prefer Subin. That doesn't
exactly.
Make sense.
So my question would be, why did Abaye disagree with him? Why didn't Abaye say that answer? He didn't think of it. No, he knew the answer. Of course. But why didn't he accept it?
Why didn't he accept what? Rav Papa's?
Rav Papa says Metaltalin is better than Karka. Why didn't Abaye think that? How come he thought that Karka is better than Metaltalin? How come he rejected Abaye's answer, Rav Papa's answer? I mean, why he just didn't think about it?
No, you're right. I don't understand. This is actually something I don't understand because it seemed like our learning so far, it seemed like each one of them has a different scenario in his mind. Like what you're saying, that I mean, at the pure Svara level, it seems like Rav Papa is thinking about a more cosmopolitan situation where a guy is, he's thinking about how he's going to sell his Subin in the city, in the marketplace on Mondays and Thursdays. Whereas the other guy, for Abaye, that's just not his worldview. He's thinking much more locally, and he's thinking, what would be. But that doesn't make sense, does it? I mean,
yeah.
Because then it reduces it to cases, right?
Exactly.
You can't reduce it.
Exactly. Reduce it to cases and not to svaras. And I want to talk about svaras.
Right. So how do you?
So Abaye, if we're just talking this out, so Abaye would say, wait a minute. He would say to Rav Papa, wait a minute, wait, hold on. First of all, let's talk about. We have to like two things. We have to talk about the quality of the desire for the object itself. Okay, but we also have to talk about the convertibility of the object itself. Okay, so when it comes to the desirability of the object itself, everyone would say, Meitav is more desirable. But what about the convertibility of the object itself? So maybe a buyer would say the only convertibility we have to be involved with is the local convertibility. Why? Because the external availability is going to put an extra tircha on the nizak. Who said the Torah is ready to do that? You said, well, the nizak would be glad to do it. Who said? Maybe the Torah, let's talk in terms of convertibility, and the Torah is saying, look, you, the nizak, want to get your money. Who can you get it from? Right here and now. You put up a for sale sign for the land, or you put up a for sale sign for the subin. Where are you going to? Which is going to get your money back faster? So a buyer will say, "Come on, the meitav will get your money back." There's more people would rather have meitav than subin. More people would rather have land than subin.
But you're saying that he would say that universally?
No, he would say we're only interested in the here and the now. Don't tell me that the Torah would now, because you're losing. You, Reb Papa, are now imposing a tircha on the nizak, and really for only one small case. What's going to happen according to you? The white elephant story. You want to increase your customers, right? Because you're afraid that you can't get the money back from the local yokels around, right? Mm-hmm. But who says? Maybe if you give him meitav, he'll get the money back. He'll get the money back better than the subin. And then, if that's true, then we should say that the nizak should have the meitav first, and not the metathlon, because the metathlon is going to have to run around to get rid of it. And who says that the Torah imposes that extra tircha on the nizak? Maybe the best thing, because it's maybe only a small set of circumstances where he won't be able to sell the meitav. Normally, you can sell the meitav with a few guys around. Normally. It's true that sometimes you won't find the market. But the question is, because of that, we're going to say that the nizak can now go flying around, and really metathlon is to his advantage. Metathlon is to his advantage when you can't find customers. Okay, that's true. But it's to his disadvantage because he has to go finding the customers. I don't know if I'm being clear here, but I'm trying to say that a buyer wouldn't consider that the Torah would add the extra tircha on the nizak to go around the other places. And therefore, even if he does hold convertibility, like Reb Papa, he'll say the convertibility has to be here and now. And why do I say that? You should know that that's the halacha, by the way, which is also very strange. When we read the halacha, the last halacha there says that you evaluate how much the stuff is worth in the here and the now. So, I mean, this is very, I don't say that I'm being 100% clear here, but I'm saying that it seems to me that Reb Papa lost a little something by having the nizak now have the tircha going to the other city and selling it. He lost a little something. You'll say that's not significant. Okay, that's exactly what he says. Because, and that's why the metathlon, he has a right to the metathlon first, like the pasuk says. He has a right to demand this metathlon.
Yeah.
Okay. But maybe, okay, anyway, opened up this discussion.
So you're saying it's not, you're saying it's not really situational, right? Or what? Or, you see what I'm saying? Like, my question is still, how is that difference still not reducible to case law? Because what I'm trying to analyze here is Reb Papa lost something in this teretz, that Abaya, when he had his kasha, in other words, it cost him something. Abaya could say, look, in the here and now, everyone wants meitav over subin for both reasons, for both of its inherent quality and even its convertibility.
I could sell Meitav better than I could sell Subin. So to tell me that it's not true, I can't. If I may not, it may not be true that that Meitav will sell better than Metaltalin. That may not be true. And therefore the Torah says that what happened there? And therefore the Torah says that the Nizak has a, let's talk about it again, because there's things that are not being clear here. Okay, I like I said, I haven't polished it, but what are we saying here? Are we saying that the mazik, and this is one of the problems that we have, the mazik must give? It's a din, like the Shach says, the mazik must give metaltalin and not karka, or we're saying that the nizak can demand. Is it the demand of the nizak, or is it the din of the mazik? This is one of our essential problems here. How do we learn this? According to Abaya, it makes no sense to say that the mazik should want metaltalin over karka. So I said the first way I analyzed it was that's because he's looking at the intrinsic value of the thing, not its convertibility. That's the first way I evaluated it. That was a simple way of evaluating it. That Abai thinks that the reason why we're helping the nizak is because we're giving him, he doesn't have money, right? And he only has these two other items, and the best of the two other items is the meitav, right? You either get money or you get items, and meitav is the best item. That's how we analyzed the Abaya. And therefore, when the pasuk said that no, actually, he can demand, or I say I don't know if it's demand. So I have to think about this. Yes, we're saying he can demand the metaltalin above karka, according to the pasuk.
According to the pasuk?
Yeah, according to the way we're learning the Pesukim, if he has metaltalin and karka, he can demand the metaltalin. That's how we're learning the Pesukim. Okay? And that, Abaya said, is counterintuitive. Why? Because no one would demand metaltalin over karka. No one would demand it. Why would the Nizak demand metaltalin over karka? The Nizak would always demand karka over metaltalin. So it doesn't make any sense that he would demand metaltalin first. Now that's if the demand of the Nizak. Let's try to do it on the din of the mazik, right? If the Torah is trying to help the Nizak, and we're talking about the chayfetz, so the mazik must give the best chayfetz, which is karka. Yet the pasuk is saying he can give the worst chayfetz, which is subin. That's if we look at it in terms of what the mazik must give. So on both sides, because it's not clear here, that's another variation in the theme here that the Shach brought up here, which is, I don't think is so spelled out here in the Nachlas of it, actually, that little piece. You see, because when we reduce this to better and worse, we still have this problem of not only why is it better or worse, that's one problem, but is the Torah demanding? Is it a din, or is it a request of the Nizak?
Right.
You see?
A privilege or a prerogative, as they say. Right? Is it a privilege of the mazik it's a privilege of the nizak or a prerogative of the mazik?
Yeah.
Right?
Or even worse, it could be a demand on the mazik. That's a third possibility.
Or a demand on the...
In other words, it must be...
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's a privilege. It's actually a demand. It's an obligation.
Right.
Is it an obligation on the mazik? Or is it a
permission?
A permission or privilege or whatever you say. Well, what does it mean? An option of the nizak.
Right.
Okay, that's another variation that we have to get into. That's not polished. Okay, we have to think about that.
Right.
And again, if you don't have, the problem is you have to have all these variables very clearly set. And the learning process is always upsetting, right? It's always upside down and inside out because we're actually dealing with the relationships and the variables and trying to understand how they relate to each other. So that's always what we say, throwing the balls up in the air. It's very nice when everything is settled and you say, well, this is what it looks like when it's finished. But that's very, very limited. That doesn't tell us how you got there. That's the whole problem of learning halacha. The halacha just tells you the result, but doesn't tell you how you got there. And for us, the whole idea of the Gemara is not like the Mishnah also tells you results, normally cases in law, but the Gemara teaches you how it got there. It's a very important place because how you got there is also going to cause variations in the dinim, like over here. How it's very important how the Rambam and the Ramah and the Tosfos how they got there. Okay, because then you're going to have to, in the end, I mean, the big people will have to evaluate. When you make a Pesach Halacha, you have to evaluate not only their conclusions, but how they got there. And how they got there, everyone had to pay something. Because if it was easy to get there, then no one would be talking about it, right? They have to be talking in a place where the result is difficult to arrive at, because this is that Mars planet is doing something crazy in the skies, which has to be explained. So anyway, we're on our path. Let's keep it first. We'll keep it simple, and then we're going to have to integrate everything. We have to integrate svara, text, the rights of the mazik, the rights of the nizak. All that has to be integrated in the end. But let's get simple first, as simplistic as we can. Okay, so we were in our chart here. We said, look, according to the Nachlas David, what's going on here is if we start with Malva is equal to Nizak, we get Kesef is greater than Karka. The associative Yashiv with Kesef means that also Yashiv is greater than Karka, meaning that if the Mazik has, let's learn simply, if he has Subin and Meitav, he must give the Subin first. He must give it. Let's learn it simple. Okay? So that's counterintuitive, we said. Why should he give the worst thing first? If we're trying to help the Nizak, he should give his best thing. So comes along Ram Papa and he explains, actually, Metathlon is the best. He's giving the best thing because Metathlon is better. Why is it better? Because you'll always get your money back. Whereas with Meitav, you might get your money back or you might not get your money back. So it's actually very good that the Torah says give Metathlon, because that gives the Nizak a better opportunity to get his money back than if it was Meitav. Okay? So then we tried to analyze a little more deeply. There's a cost to that and what the cost was. But okay, let's leave it simple. All right. That's what Reb Papa did. What did Reb Huna do? How did he get out of Abaya's problem? That the result of the Pesukim is coming to a non-intuitive answer that the Mazik should give Metathlon to the Nizak when he has Karka, which doesn't seem to be that's preferable, that's making helping out the Nizak at all. So he doesn't want to, Reb Huna doesn't want to change the Svara of Abaya. He agrees with Abaya that really Malva is excuse me, he disagrees. I'm sorry, Adarabba. He agrees with the buyer on the result, that this result that Metathlon is more preferable to Nizak than Karka. That result is anti-intuitive, right? It's against Svar Chitzona. Reb Papa agrees with that. The question is, how does he solve the problem of the Pesukim, which are generating, in other words, associated of Yashiv with Kesef, and Kesef is greater than Karka, is going to make Metathlon greater than Karka. How is he going to handle that? So he goes back to the starting premise, which is that Malva and Ezekiel are equal, and he disagrees with that. That's what Reb Huna is going to do. He's going to say it's not true. Malva has nothing to do with Ezekiel. Okay? So therefore, and he doesn't hold that he may not even hold he may not even hold, by the way, that the Malva has a right to get Kesef over Karka. there in Ptolemaso B'Nachor. He may not even hold that. That's a possibility also, by the way. So he'll say that when the simple svara is that Meitav and Kesef are both good, equally fine for the Nizak. And there's no advantage of having Kesef over Meitav. It's no advantage at all.
Or the other way around.
No, what am I thinking about here? Because you're going to have to say that Abaya said that the Zikin is like Malva, and therefore, just like the simple svara is the Malva would always write Kesef over items. All right, where Papa disagrees, and he says no, there's no force to say that, and then we have to spell it out. This whole problem is spelling these things out once you spell them out. I mean, why would he say that the Malva sees no advantage of Kesef over Karka?
For whom?
For Rav Huna. What Rav Huna is going to do is deny this analogy. Once he denies the analogy, so then Kesef will be equal. Kesef will be equal to Karka, and that's his first move. Oh, Kesef, oh Karka, they're equal. Kesef is not greater than Karka; it's equal to Karka. Okay, that's what he's going to do. How is that going to help us? Let's look at our chart here. Once he says that Kesef is once he says that Kesef is equal to Karka, right? Then we can understand why the Torah had to write both of them. Now, why? We said his lashon is there's no quality that Kesef has over Karka. There's no quality that Karka has over Kesef. So we said that they are different and equal, meaning that there's certain very nice qualities of Kesef, the fact that you can get what you want immediately, of large variety, but there's also a great quality in Meitav Karka, right, which is that the object is very, very productive. So if the Torah just wrote Kesef, I would say, hey, the Torah just wants you to get money, and therefore all Karka would be out. So the Torah had to write Karka. If the Torah wrote Karka, you'd say, wait a minute, maybe the Torah is interested in returning it's looking at the side that the Nizak wants the best item. The best item to have is Karka. So it's a toss-up. Since it's a toss-up, we said the Torah has to repeat what you might have thought. Okay? In other words, that's one of the rules we learned in Dr. Gemara also. The Torah, when there's a doubt, the Torah has to spell out. Okay? So since if it wrote Kesef, I might have said Karka not, or not made out of Karka, or if I wrote Karka, I would have said Kesef not, because they both have different qualities. So the Torah had to write both of them. Okay, and that's because one doesn't have a quality that's better than the other one. It's just different, and therefore the Torah had to write both. Now the only problem is, what about Yoshiv's association with Kesef? Now the only problem that was the problem in other words, by making Kesef equal to Karka, so then you don't have to worry about Yoshiv's associate with Kesef is going to be greater than Karka. That already was solved. That's what Rav Huna wanted to solve. Because once he starts making that analogy that Kesef is greater than Karka, he's going to be stuck that's saying that Yoshev is greater than Karka too. He doesn't want to say that because that's non-intuitive, and it's it's against Svarah Chitzona. Counterintuitive. So what does he say? He says no. Kesef and Karka are equal in the sense that they both have very unique qualities, and the Torah had to write both because you might have eliminated one if it had the other one. But none of them is absolutely more preferable to the Nizak. They're different. Sometimes the Nizak would want good quality stuff, and sometimes he would want good Kesef stuff. That's fine. The only problem is we have Yoshiv. That's what Rav Nachman said. And once you make that equality, so now Yoshiv is going to be equal to Kesef and Karka. So to make Yoshiv equal to Kesef is not a big problem. But to make it equal to Karka is a very big problem, because Rav Huna agrees that if the Nizak had a chance to get Karka or Subin, he would definitely take Karka. There's no way that Yoshiv is better. He doesn't want to answer like Rav Papa that Yoshiv has a quality that's better than Karka. He doesn't want to answer that way. Okay,
right.
So
because he wants to be faithful to the initial svara Like the common sense svara that Meitav is better than the Talmud.
Exactly. So
in the back of his mind, that's the whole
right.
motivation for him.
He wants to keep that the sun going around the earth, right? That's what he wants to do. So now he's but he also has now the dilemma. He solved one problem. Okay, fine. Kesef's not greater than Karka, and then Yoshiv is associated with the wrong one. That he solved. But wait a minute. Now he ended up with another problem, which Reb Nachman brought up, which he knew already, but Reb Nachman interrupted him, that once Kesef is equal to Karka, and Yoshiv is equal to Kesef, so Kesef is equal to Karka, which is against the Svara, which he wants to preserve.
Right.
So
that's
here,
where he rereads the Ribui.
Exactly.
That's where the Ribui gives in. But it makes, the truth is, it makes sense if we think of it that way, that it's not just that he anticipated Reb Nachman's objection. That really is exactly where he was heading to. The whole point for him, the whole point for him to begin with was to preserve the superiority of Karka over Metaltalin.
Correct.
That was the whole point.
Exactly.
So that's exactly where he was going. So when Reb Nachman comes in, so he says, look, that's my whole point here. So really the Ribui he's already thinking about the Ribui when he makes his first statement.
Exactly.
It's not just he's not just cleaning up, the scene here.
Exactly.
Saying, okay, we better have a different Ribui. The whole point, the Ribui is really implied.
Exactly.
A different reading of the Ribui is implied in his equation of Kesef.
100%. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why Reb Nachman is called an interrupter.
Right.
Right? Because that's exactly was an integral part of his discussion. That was the obvious move that he was going to Machadesh, which was the Ribu's on equality. But Reb Nachman wasn't prepared to hear that. That was a big chiddush, right? We said everywhere else, it seems that Ribu should be equal to the Mefarish. So that was a very big chiddush of Rav Huna. Okay? And that's why he was the Rebbe and Reb Nachman is the Talmud. Okay? Good. So that's where we ended up. Okay? So now the question is, that's the Gemara now. That's the machlokus between Reb Papa and Reb Huna. Okay? So how does the Rambam now and the Ramah fit into this? So here, Reb Huna, by the way, is left alone. In other words, even though he does have, we mentioned he does have a hierarchy, but his hierarchy is based on Kesef is equal to Meitav. And that's not the Rambam, and that's not the Ramah, because according to both of them, Kesef is greater than Meitav, okay? Now, the Nachasava tell you the Gra and the Shach, hijacked Reb Huna by making this unequal law, which the Nachasava says I save that. Let's leave Reb Huna out of this. Reb Huna says what he says, that there's an equal or, and then he was forced to Machadesh that the Ribui is less. Okay? So let's leave him out of the Rambam and the Ramah. Nothing to do with the Rambam and the Ramah at all. It's Rev Papa where we're going to see the Rambam and the Ramah. Okay? Let's go back here. Okay, so here we are.
Even,
Go ahead.
But I was going to say the Ramah preserves some of that Ribui of Rav Huna, no?
Yeah, but yes, we're going to have to discuss that. But as far as, so let's discuss that.
Yeah.
As far as the Rambam and the Ramah, it can't be Rav Huna, because Rav Huna holds that Kesef is equal to Karka. And they're going to say Karka is on the bottom. Okay? So forget about posting the Taltalin. The Rav Huna is out of it. He has nothing to do with the Rambam and the Ramah. at all. It's an equal or, kesef and karka. It's not an unequal or. First you give kesef and karka, like the Shach wanted to say. The Gruel wants to say, forget about that. That's very dochik in the language. And there's a lot of problems with that, as he's going to bring up. But it's an equal or, and Rav Huna has nothing to do essentially with the Rambam and the Ramah. Why? Because they're going to put karka on the bottom over here as a poor kesef. Now, the only thing that will be used, and this is what you're referring to, is the relationship of kesef and metaltalin. That will be the machlokus of the Rambam and the Ramah. In other words, the Ramah, the Reb Papa held because of the Gemara, the analogy between Malva and Nezikin, that kesef is always better than karka. Okay? That's how he started. And that's what the Pesukim produced, because if you start with that position, the kesef is better than karka, you run through the Pesukim and the equation of metaltalin to kesef, then metaltalin has to be better than karka too. Okay? And that's where they differed with Rav Huna. Rav Huna said that there was no analogy between Malva and Nezikin. You with me? That's why he puts kesef equal to karka. But they who said that Rav Papa and Abaya, they all said that there is an analogy, so they have kesef is greater than karka. Right? And Rav Papa says that's what the pasuk says. So the association with metaltalin and kesef, Hogufa, is to tell you that just like kesef is greater than karka, metaltalin is greater than karka too. You with me? Mm-hmm. The only problem between the Ramah and Rav Papa is the relationship of metaltalin to kesef. That's the only problem that they have. They both hold that the Pesukim are producing that kesef is better than karka. If you have both kesef and karka, you must give kesef. Both the Ramah and the Rambam hold that. The only problem is with metaltalin. Is metaltalin, we said, equal to the mafarish kesef or a step less? Right? Mm-hmm. So the Rambam says, okay, come on, there's no reason why Rav Papa has to make metaltalin a step less than kesef. That was done by Rav Huna because he couldn't have karka and metaltalin in the same level. That's why he made this new chiddush that a ruby could be less. But if we don't have that push of metaltalin equal to karka, because we hold that, right? There's no problem. In other words, let's go again. If you're going to say that kesef is equal to karka, so you have a problem with metaltalin, which is equal to kesef, then metaltalin is equal to kesef. That goes against svara, so we had to push it down because it went against svara, right? But if you're going to say that there's no problem with karka being less than metaltalin, matter of fact, in svara, metaltalin is better than karka because you can get your money back. So then I don't have to make metaltalin a step lower than kesef. And that's the Rambam. What's the Ramah going to do? We said last week, last time we met, what's the Ramah going to do? How come he sort of borrows what happened, what Rav Huna had to do, and he says it too? Okay? So what I said last week, or last time I met, last few days, is that Rav Huna was machadesh the fact that a ribu does not have to be an equality. Now it's true he was forced into that position because of karka. In other words, if metaltalin is equal to kesef, then it's equal to karka, which he held in svara can't be. It's true he was forced in to say, okay, the ribu is a step lower. And Reb Papa doesn't have that problem because, according to him, kesef is greater than karka. So metaltalin can be equal to kesef. There's no contradiction in that. However, in svara, and that's how I answered, Reb Papa held that metaltalin has to be a poor stepsister to kesef. Why? Because even according to him, you do have to go to a makom acher to get your money, don't you? So the essential word of the Torah is we want to make it easy on the nizak to get his money back. Now, if we want to help the nizak to get his money back, the best thing to do is give him money. If you have metaltalin and kesef, then nizak should get kesef. Why does he have to take metaltalin and go schlepping around to the other town just to get kesef when he has kesef right here? So the Ramah says in Svara, it's got to be that if the mazik has kesef and metaltalin, the nizak can demand kesef. And it can't be that the mazik can give the nizak metaltalin and say, go over there and cash it in. Why should it be? That's not an advantage to the nizak. You have a problem that Yoshiv was a ribui of kesef. So we said that's not a problem. We see from Rav Huna that rule can be broken. It's not an absolute rule. When something comes against the ribui, it can be broken into a madrega. It doesn't matter what the thing was. He shows us a principle, Rav Huna, that's not a inviolable rule that the ribui has to be equal to the mafarish. It's not inviolable. If there's good reason to say not so, we can do it, and that's what Rav Huna proved. He was forced to it, but he was forced to it for his reasons, because he couldn't have metaltalin with karka. But Reb Papa says, wait a minute. The Ramah says, wait a minute. Let's think about this, gentlemen. Let's not talk without thinking. If the whole idea of the Torah is the convertibility into cash, then it doesn't make sense that if the mazik has cash and he has metaltalin, that the Torah would say you can give metaltalin. Why? The metaltalin, this guy's going to have to run around and go sell the metaltalin. Why? That's an extra tircha. It's an extra tircha. So in Svara, it's got to be that kesef is, when you have kesef metaltalin, the mazik has a right to get his kesef in Svara. And that the ribui we see is not inviolable. In other words, it can't be, if the ribui is always an equality and nothing can come against it, so then Rav Huna would never have a position. Okay?
There's something so abstract happening here that it's hard for me to put my finger on it. What I find really interesting is that, in a sense, there's two ways we can approach Rav Huna. Either we can say that he was pushed into his understanding of the ribui by the situation. In other words, that we want to say, according to Svara Chitzoyna, that karka is better than subin, and that practical consideration really forced him into reading the ribui in this way. Or, as you're saying, the last thing you're saying now, the approach you're taking now is actually quite different. You're saying, no, it's not. He wasn't forced there. That itself was already a given to begin with. And to his mind, and maybe he came to with both issues in his mind. Maybe on the one hand, and maybe that was the moment of genius for him. Like his genius was to be able to see, look, there are two compelling reasons that's leading me to equate karka with kesef. You have to get that?
Yes, my wife's supposed to. Did you get it? Yes, did you get it? Just 1 second. Hello? Yeah. I'm just about to finish teaching now, okay? So just give me a few more minutes, okay? I'll go right back. Yeah, but I can't do it now anyway. I just will not be free now to do work. Okay. No, I'll speak to you in 5-10 minutes. Okay, but I can't do it now. Tonight I'm just wiped. I have to do other things. I have to sleep. I can't. Last night was just I can't do it. Okay, just let me finish my class. I'll speak to you more about it. Okay.